Hey, I'm Rejected Shotgun. So the new comic Wasted Lands has come out for Overwatch, and it's a really cool story about Roadhog and Junkrat. But what I found fascinating is that the Junkertown Queen was mentioned multiple times all throughout this comic, but she was never actually shown, leaving, in my opinion, her slot open to become a playable hero later on in the future. But there was some interesting things said about the Queen in this comic today, so let's talk about it. Real quick, I want to remind you guys that I'm doing a $50 Steam gift card giveaway. If you want to enter the giveaway, all you have to do is subscribe to my channel, hit the bell icon to get notified, and leave a comment on this video, and you will become automatically entered into the giveaway. The giveaway ends in 2 weeks though, so make sure you don't miss your opportunity. Now let's get back to the video. Throughout the new comic, we see a lot of interesting lore tidbits that a lot of us fans have been hoping for some follow-up on for some time. Me personally, I was most excited for anything that had to relate to the character of the Queen in Junkertown. To me, the Queen is the most interesting character in the story right now, and I personally want to find out as much information as possible on her. And thankfully, there is quite a bit of info about the Queen in this comic. The first mention of the Queen happens when Roadhog is approaching the Junkertown entrance. There's somebody in the guard tower who looks down on him and says, "Hope you're not armed, Roadhog. The Queen ain't giving you permission to carry here." This tells me that at some point in the story, the Queen and Roadhog had some kind of falling out, and now Roadhog isn't allowed to carry his scrap gun into Junkertown anymore. What happened to get him banned from his weapons inside the walls is still not cleared up, and we even saw it inside the animation that Blizzard did for Roadhog and Junkrat just recently, so hopefully we'll figure out what actually happened there sometime soon. The next mention of the Queen happens during the second panel, where Roadhog is thinking about how he hates Junkertown, how they were forced to fight a war to protect this place, how they experienced the apocalypse. Roadhog goes on to say, "The Queen and her people can have it. They deserve what they get." This sounds kind of passive, as he's saying he's not a huge fan of the Queen, he doesn't really like anybody in Junkertown, they just deserve whatever it is they have, whether it's good or bad. The next mention of the Queen happens when we see this old engineer who's rummaging through some scrap and he's looking for some stuff. He doesn't know that it's Roadhog that's walked into the room, and he says, "Good for me. The Queen sends her puffed up bastards to collect if I can't pay taxes." Now, this is starting to paint a picture of the Queen, which is one of sort of a totalitarian dictatorship where whatever the Queen says goes, and she orders her goons to go and force people to pay her taxes. It's starting to seem like the Queen isn't such a great person, but in fact, she's sort of this villainous head honcho that rules over all of Junkertown, making sure nobody steps out of line. And this does make sense because, as we know in her story, she won the title of Queen by battling mechs and winning tons of mech battles and basically beating everybody else in Junkertown to rise to the top. So for her philosophies on her dictatorship or whatever her rule is, it makes sense to know that she's kind of a hard ass who throws out her goons at people. It does definitely fit her character. In one of the next panels, we see Junkrat is being held up by a bunch of goons, and one of them who's holding him by the neck says, "If I knew where a priceless treasure was buried, I'd be thrilled to tell the Queen all about it." This kind of makes it feel like all these people in Junkertown are loyal to the Queen above all else. Even when they're trying to find things such as treasure, their first thought is to tell the Queen about it, making it seem like there is some kind of crazy hierarchy and the Queen has won the respect of all of these people. Then, as Roadhog is trying to get a drink at a bar inside Junkertown, a guy walks up to him and he says, "I know you. Queen don't like you." Once again, the history of Roadhog in the Queen speaks for itself, and it's interesting to note that this random guy seems to know the story of Roadhog and the Junker Queen, meaning maybe something really big between them happened, a very big public event. Maybe Roadhog and the Queen fought each other in some kind of mech battle or battle to the death. Who really knows? At this point though, it's interesting to note that whatever the scrap is between the two of them, it is very public and people do seem to know about it. And the final mention of the Queen in this comic is just the same guy who is going at Roadhog says to Junkrat, "Queen don't mind if we damage you." Once again, just kind of reinforcing the fact that the Queen doesn't really have any strict rules or laws besides enforcing and making sure that she gets money from all of her citizens. It seems like the Queen is a true kind of dictator over Junkertown, enforcing with some kind of not really a police force, but more of just goons who are willing to do whatever she says because she has earned their respect. And it seems like everybody in Junkertown respects the Queen and is constantly referencing her. But what I find incredibly fascinating is the fact that the Queen is not shown once in this comic. Not a single little bit of the Queen is shown even one time. What this tells me is that Blizzard is not yet ready to release any information about the Junkertown Queen yet, which supports my theory that they're going to be holding back on a lot of this stuff until they release her as a playable hero. I think she would be a great hero, and it looks like everything is continuing to line up, as a lot of people were speculating that the Junkertown Queen was going to only be a character in the comics. But as we have seen here, she is referenced in the comics, but is not actually a comic character. A lot of the side characters in Overwatch are actually used as comic characters that will never really appear in game. Like with Orisa, we had Ify Uladel, which is the person who designed Orisa, but she will never actually appear in game because she's just a comic character. Well, with Blizzard leaving the Junkertown Queen out of the comics, it seems like she's not just going to be left as a comic book character. It seems like they're referencing her and building her up to be something more, not to just be released in some comic, especially not one as short as this. So in my opinion, the Junkertown Queen does have a release date in the future, and as you can see here, Blizzard decided not to add her in the comic for whatever reason. That is just a fact. She is not in the comic, but she is referenced to a lot, which means that she is an important character, and if she's so important and she's not left in the comic, then what is left for the Junkertown Queen for her to appear in? In my opinion, you already know she's going to be a playable hero, but like I said before, no proof yet, just a lot of really coincidental evidence. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more Overwatch news like this and more news on the Junkertown Queen, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I make Overwatch news videos every day, so if you subscribe, you'll always be notified of an interesting Overwatch news video. That's all for now though. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.